students, welcome back to my channel. In the last class we are discussing the agencies of cross pollination and we have completed the abiotic components, that is wind and water. Pollination takes place by the agency of wind is called as anemophily. The pollination takes place by water, it is called as agrophily. And even in the last class we have discussed the zoophily, that is a pollination takes place by the agency of animals. Under zoophily again we are going to discuss the entomophily, ornithophily and chiropterophily. As you know, entomophily is a pollination by insects, ornithophily by birds and chiropterophily by bats. So firstly we are going to discuss about the entomophily. Then what is entomophily? The pollination takes place by the agency of insects. By the agency of insects, it is called as entomophily. Pollination takes place by the agency of insects is called as entomophily. And the flowers are usually called as entomophilous flowers. And those entomophilous flowers have certain characteristic feature. Because if the flower which is mainly pollinated by the insect, the flower should contain certain characteristic feature. Then what are the characteristic features of entomophilous flowers? So those flowers are usually large, colorful, means brightly colored petals. They contain brightly colored petals. And they are usually fragrant and they secrete nectar. Usually the flowers which are pollinated by insects, they secrete nectar and they emit fragrance or scent. If flowers are small, they are aggregated together to form inflorescence. To become conspicuous or to become visible. If the flowers are small, even though they contain brightly colored petals, they are not visible. That's why the smaller flowers are aggregated or clustered to form inflorescence so that they can be visible. And these flowers, as I said, they usually emit a fragrance. Why the animals or insects are attracted towards these flowers? Because of their beautiful colors and their fragrance. And the flowers which are mainly pollinated by certain insects, they usually emit a foul odor or a fragrance. So usually in order to attract the animals. So certain animals also visiting those flowers, those are called as animal visitors. We can consider insects as animal visitors as they are visiting the flower. So those animal visitors will be getting certain rewards from the flower. As they mainly help in pollination. The insects mainly help in pollination, which means they are transferring pollen grains from one flower to another flower. During that time, the flower should provide certain rewards to these animal visitors or insects. Then they are called as floral rewards. So these floral rewards are provided by the flower. Then what type of floral rewards will be provided by the flower to animal visitors or insects, which is usually the pollen grains and nectar. So pollen grains and nectar, these two are important. You may get a question about this. The pollen grains and nectar are the floral rewards given by the flower to the animal visitors or to the insects. So during when the animal visitors visiting the flower, at that time they come in contact with the anther and stigma. The animal visitor, when it sits on the flower, it can come in contact with the anther and stigma. At that time, the body of the animal gets a coating of pollen grains. As the anther matured, the pollen grains can be coated over the surface of the animal. Why? Because the pollen grains are usually sticky in nature. As the pollens are sticky, the body of the animal is coated with the pollen grains. When that animal will be come in contact with the another flower of the same species, it helps in pollination. Try to understand. In one flower, the anther and stigma is there. So the anther matures, the pollen grains are released. At that time, any one of the animal visitor or insects sits on the anther, the pollens will be attached to the body of the surface as they are sticky. And that animal visitor comes when it goes to another flower where it brings about the pollination. So these are certain conditions we can see in case of entomophilous flowers. And We can see another floral reward. We can see in certain plants, the flower will provide a safe place for laying the eggs. A best example I can give you, it is Amorphophallus. Amorphophallus, it is the tallest flower which measures about 6 feet tall. You may be knowing that Amorphophallus is the tallest flower which measures about the 6 feet tall. So what is the characteristic feature in case of Amorphophallus? Here it provides a safe place for laying eggs of certain species. That is also one of the floral reward given by the flower of Amorphophallus. And one more example I can give you. There are two species, a plant called as yucca plant and a moth called as Pronuba moth. So there is a relationship between the yucca plant and Pronuba moth. So this is very important. Even it is important in the point of view of your examination. So these two, the yucca plant and the Pronuba moth, these two are mutually benefited and they are mutually dependent on one another. So these two cannot complete their life cycle without each other. If a yucca plant is absent, Pronuba cannot complete their life cycle. Similarly, if Pronuba moth is not there, yucca plant also cannot complete their life cycle. So how it will be happening means, for example, you may be knowing that the flower which contains the gynoecium containing stigmastoid and ovary. If the Pronuba moth, when it comes in contact with, as it contains the anthers also, so the Pronuba moth can sit on the anthers or it may sit on the stigma also. So the Pronuba moth can carry the pollen grains. So when this Pronuba moth sits on the stigma, it brings about pollination. At the same time, this Pronuba moth, it lay eggs in the locules of the ovary. Not ovules, the ovarian cavities which are called as locules. So within the locules of the yucca plant, the Pronuba moth will be laying the eggs. At the same time, it will be pollinated by the Pronuba moth. You just understand the Pronuba moth aids in pollination so that yucca plant is benefited. And yucca plant provides a shelter for laying eggs so that Pronuba moth is also benefited. If yucca plant is not there, Pronuba moth cannot lay eggs, cannot continue their generation. If a Pronuba moth is not there, it is not gets pollinated, so that it cannot complete their life cycle. That is what I am going to say. The yucca plant and Pronuba moth both are dependent on one another and they cannot complete their life cycle without each other. So this is the another thing we need to know about the entomophily. So entomophily, the pollination takes place by insects and we should know certain characteristic feature of entomophilous flowers that completes entomophily. So next we are going to discuss about ornithophily and you can remember certain examples for entomophily which are cucumber, bougainvillea, there is a paper flower, etc. are the examples for entomophily. Now we are talking about ornithophily. What is ornithophily? The pollination takes place by the agency of birds. Ornithophily, the pollination takes place by the agency of birds is called as ornithophily. And examples includes Erythrina, bombast, there is a seal. So these are common examples we can give for the plants or flowers which are mainly pollinated by birds. So try to remember ornithophily, pollination by the agency of birds, examples Erythrina and bombast. Here also we should know the characteristic features of ornithophilous flowers. If the flowers are pollinated by the birds, the flowers should contain certain characteristic features. Here also the flowers are usually large and they contain brightly colored petals. The flowers contain brightly colored petals and they secrete nectar. They secrete nectar and usually these ornithophilous flowers they have a long tubular cup-like structure. So they have a long tubular cup-like structure to hold the watery nectar. For example, so these are the petals. So here they contain a U-shaped or cup-like structure to hold the watery nectar. That is also one of the characteristic feature of ornithophilous flowers. And usually the stamens and the stigmas are well exposed outside the corolla lobes. So these are the petals, all the petals together it is called as a corolla. So this is the corolla lobe. The anthers and stigma will expose outwards or outside to the corolla lobes. So these are the characteristic features of Ornithophilus flowers. The flowers are large and they contain brightly colored petals and they secrete nectar, and to hold the watery nectar they have a cup-shaped or U-shaped structure, and the stigma and stem will be exposed outwards the corolla lobes. And examples Erythrina and Bombax. And next one, Chiropterophily. So Chiropterophily, it is the pollination takes place by the agency of bats. The pollination takes place by the agency of bats. It is called as Chiropterophily. Even this is also important. And Chiropterophilus flowers also contain certain characteristic features. For example, so which are the characteristic features of Chiropterophilus flowers? I mean to say the flowers which are pollinated by bats. You know that bats are the nocturnal flying mammals and helps in transfer of pollen grains over several longer distance. And the flowers are usually dull in color. The flowers are dull colored. Whereas in remaining thing we have discussed, the flowers are brightly colored. But in case of Chiropterophily, the flowers are dull colored and they usually opens after the sunset. The flowers usually opens after the sunset, and they also secrete nectar. They secrete nectar and they emit a strong odor. These flowers, they emit strong odor. Their flowers are usually dull colored and they usually opens after the sunset, and they also secrete a more amount of nectar, and even they produce more number of pollen grains. More number of sticky pollen grains can be secreted by the Chiropterophilus flowers. So these are certain characteristic features of Chiropterophilus flowers, and examples which are mainly pollinated by the bats are Calgeria, Bohemia, etc. So that completes the agencies of cross-pollination, and at last we need to discuss about the pollen robbers. They can be called as pollen robbers or nectar robbers. So this is important. What is pollen or nectar robbers means? Sometimes you may be observed that the insects are animal visitors. They will consume the nectar and pollen without bringing about the pollination. For example, you take a flower. So here the anthers will be present and here it is the stigma. So some insects or some animal visitors, they can come in contact with the anther, they can consume the pollen grains. So why they can consume the pollen grains? The pollen grains are nutritious, they are rich in nutrients, so that they can consume the pollen grains. And usually after taking the pollen grains, the insects will be transferring those pollens onto the stigma of the another flower, helps in pollination. But certain species or certain insects, they consume these pollen grains and they cannot transfer these pollen grains on the stigma of another flower. And sometimes whatever the nectar which is present in the flower, the nectar will be collected by the insect, and at the same time the pollen grains cannot be transferred onto the another plant or another flower. Such a condition is called as pollen robbers or nectar robbers. So I repeat the definition. Some animal visitors are insects. They consume pollens and nectars without bringing about pollination, are called pollen robbers and nectar. They may consume pollen or nectar, but they do not help in pollination. They are called as pollen robbers and nectar robbers. So this completes about the cross-pollination and agents of cross-pollination. And there is one more thing we need to discuss. If the flowering plants will be adapted for certain conditions to bring about the cross-pollination. Even though flowers are bisexual, they will be adapted for different conditions. Those are the outbreeding devices that we can discuss in the next class.